Originally from Toledo, Hernandez made his name initially through a scholarly translation of Pliny's natural history, which, together with his considerable knowledge of medicinal plants, saw him appointed as Philip II of Spain's personal physician in 1565. Desperate to undertake an expedition to New Spain, Hernandez gently but persistently badgered the king until in 1570, during a lull in Spain's overseas wars, he was given leave and extremely generous funding to command his own expedition. Philip II was passionate about science, and the explicit aim of this, Spain's first scientific expedition, was that Hernandez should make a history of those natural things and their uses to physicians, surgeons, herbalists, Indians, and other personas curiosas who appear to be knowledgeable in these matters. Hernandez, relatively old at 55 when he set out, was amazed by Mexico. What shall I say of the wonderful natural properties of so many plants, animals, and minerals, of such different languages, of such variety of customs and rituals, of the clothing they wear, the ways in which they decorate and ornament themselves, which human understanding is barely capable of grasping? In the 7 years he spent in Mexico, Hernandez diligently and methodically collected material and information, much of it, as Sahaguin, forgive me, it's not so good with Spanish pronunciation, had done, from interviews with the indigenous Nahua people, with whom, despite the ravages caused by Cortez and his followers, he often formed a close and empathetic working relationship. Like Willoughby and Ray, his ornithological successors, Hernandez also valued first-hand knowledge. In between describing, collecting, and commissioning illustrations of what he encountered during his time in Mexico, Hernandez was also witness to the appalling mortality inflicted on the Nahua people by the Cocolizitl pestilence. I guess it's an Aztec word for pestilence. The typhoid-like enteric fever, almost certainly transmitted by their Spanish conquerors, killed over 80% of the indigenous population. Thinking as a scientist as much as a medic, Hernandez recorded the symptoms and conducted autopsies of the epidemic's victims in an effort to better understand it. His empathy for the local people saw him later accused of becoming too close to them and failing to convert them to European ways. With little sign of any return on his substantial investment, Philip II started to press Hernandez for results. In 1576, after numerous delays, Hernandez sent the king 16 volumes containing descriptions of over 3,000 plants, 400 animals, including 230 birds, and 35 minerals, together with 4,000 colour illustrations created by indigenous artists. Philip was taken aback. Hernandez had gone far beyond his original remit, supplying much more than he had been originally requested. Adding insult to injury, Hernandez's philanthropic attitude towards the Nahua people seemed almost subversive. Realizing that he might cause trouble back in Spain, Philip delayed Hernandez's return and decided not to publish his voluminous works. I can't read today, apologies. Instead, they were laid aside until 1580, when Philip instructed his new personal physician, the Italian Nardo Recchi, to make a summary of the useful information they contained. In a recent reappraisal of Hernandez's work, the historian Leonicio Lopez Ojon comments that in creating his summary for Philip II, Recchi considered all the natural history as useless, as is usual in the medical profession, and omitted much of it. Hernandez was allowed to return to Spain in 1577 and was devastated by Philip's actions, frustrated and disappointed that his work remained unpublished. Later, he was appalled by Recchi's summary of his work, and after a decade of despondency, died in 1587. And what's worse is all that work was lost in a fire a few years later. Isn't that terrible? Hello everybody, welcome to and welcome back to my channel BookTime with Elvis, and welcome back to another edition of What a Corker. And it is a corker for you today. It is a non-fiction corker, and it was my Patreon non-fiction, my Patreon book club non-fiction pick for the month of March, and it was absolutely wonderful. I have to say, it's been a long time, probably since the last What a Corker of non-fiction, that I was just so surprised by a book, really. It was so fascinating and so just readable as well. So I heartily recommend it. But you're probably thinking, what the hell is it? Well, I'm going to tell you. It's Tim Burkhead's Birds and Us, a 12,000-year history from cave art to conservation. And it is really, really a fascinating and wonderful read that goes from the Neolithic times all the way up to the present, and the present need to deal with all environmental issues and problems facing, well, us, as well as, of course, the bird world as well. And kind of interlaced with all of that is Birkenhead's own story. I mean, there's you know, it's a story of humanity's interaction with birds, but then the underlying kind of story is basically a biography of Birkhead as well, really, from his earliest days getting interested in birds, skipping school to go bird watching, all the way through to the COVID pandemic and him writing that book. So it's just, yeah, I'm almost speechless, really, with how wonderful it was. It was easily a 5-star read. I know those who read it with me on Patreon also thoroughly enjoyed it, and it's given us a real buzz to seek out other zoological works, so to speak. But not once was it dull. It was a real page turner. And you know, some people I saw on Goodreads complained a little bit that there wasn't as much maybe about birds as there could have been, compared to, like, there's quite a few anecdotes about people and their relationship to birds, so early ornithologists, early naturalists and things like that. But I think that's the point of the book, is to show that it's not a book about birds, it's a book about birds and humanity. And you can't write that without telling the stories of some of the quite colourful characters that were involved in ornithology, zoology and natural history from the earliest times until the present. Really is fantastic. So if you're at a loss of something to read that's non-fiction, and perhaps it's something that's not in your normal reading purview, you can't go wrong, I think, if you check out Tim Birkhead's Birds and Us. It is a definite corker. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Do take care, and I look forward very much to seeing you very soon in my next video, whenever that may be. Bye bye.